double check and make sure you didn't slip out. The December 15th meeting of the St. Bernard Village Council will please come to order. We invite you to stand for the prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chambers for the betterment of our fellow citizens, lead us that we may do all things well. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get underway this evening, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Miss Pat Weedman. Pat was the wife of former President of Council as well as Director of Planning and Development, Jerry Wiedemann. She was also the mother of Mike Wiedemann, former Service Department foreman. I ask for a moment of silence for her, please. Thank you. All right, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Brickwig?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Here.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schildmeyer?
Present.
Let the record show that all 7 members are present. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the reading of the last minutes?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to dispense with the reading of the written minutes of the last council meeting.
Second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to dispense with the reading of the last minutes. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Members of council, are there any errors or corrections to the minutes as submitted? If not, the minutes will stand as submitted. We move to reports of city officials. Mayor Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to take a moment to thank everyone who helped make Light Up St. Bernard and the 7th annual Will Light for Food contest such a success. We had great participation from the community and all of the volunteers. This event could not have been possible without the Village PAC, the Recreation, Service, and Police Departments. Santa and Mrs. Claus were also very impressed by the number of kids who came out to see them on Saturday morning when they were going from home to home, and for the photo opportunities in the evening. Santa may be challenging the Grinch next year, so you may have another visitor out and about as well. So again, it was a great night and by far the best one I've seen yet. Congratulations to the first place winners, the Robins on Orchard. Second place, the Souders on Jefferson, and third place, the Lukens on Tower. And to all of the other participants, with their holiday spirit, were able to collect a total of 11,867 canned goods for the St. Clement Food Pantry. So again, what a great event. Also, we have in the audience here, and I'm going to give, actually during my report, if I can give him a moment because he has to leave. Connor Morton, a St. Bernard resident, has volunteered to assist our consultant, Mark Wendling, on conducting a survey for the proposed changes to our charter. The link has been posted to the village website and Facebook page, and we need your input. Lastly, I'd like to thank Matt Durbin and Nicole Klungel, who immediately notified me that someone had created a Facebook page in my name and were trying to join Keeping St. Bernard Informed and St. Bernard Neighbors. What was alarming is that the survey had just been posted an hour earlier, and whoever was attempting to be using my likeness was also had the graphics for the survey on that as well. This is something that I do take seriously, and I promise that this is not going to be ignored. So at this time, if possible, I'd like to give just a minute for, if you don't mind, to Connor, just to make a quick plug on the survey, and he can be on his way.
Yes, thank you so much. And also thank you for giving me the opportunity to go about this survey. A little bit about me. I live out in Greenlee. I've been loving living here so far. It's been amazing. After graduating from Miami, I was excited to be able to leverage some of my skills in qualitative and quantitative research to help survey the community about these proposed charter amendments. All I can do is just really encourage people to take this survey. While I do appreciate the free marketing from people impersonating the mayor. That is not necessarily the best way to go about distributing the survey, but there are plenty of graphics. Please feel free to reach out to me to distribute that, put it in your group chats, share it with your friends and family that are St. Bernardians. It's really important that we get a lot of people to fill out this survey so that everyone's voice can be heard and applied to these charter amendments. As for safety, all data is held non-identifiable. The only identifiable question that is asked is for your first and last name, but that is completely scrubbed from the results of the survey. It is deleted as soon as the research is completed, so you can feel safe with giving your true, authentic feedback on these proposed charter amendments. So please fill out the survey. Thank you so much.
Mr. President,
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
one quick question. Are we utilizing the newsletter to push this out to residents through like an email blast, the survey? I know I've seen it online a couple times. I didn't know if we were going to utilize that database to maybe push this survey.
We've put it on, as of today, it's on the village website and Facebook page, but as far as we actually did pre-promote it in the last newsletter, but as far as there's not been a special link sent out via a newsletter format as of yet, we did tell people to actually look for this and it be forthcoming.
Mr. President,
Ms. Housefeld.
one quick thing, and I know you guys will call me silly, but there are still people out there that don't do computer stuff and things like that, so it might be a good idea to do another newsletter or something like that to promote it, because I still hate computer stuff myself, so I would much rather do something more hard copy or through, even if they had to pick up a form here at City Hall and do it.
Mr.
Just
President.
for those people that don't have computer.
So Connor, I guess as a backup, if we were to do a push, I mean, we could put something out in a special edition newsletter or call command or try to get the word out. And whether we did a paper survey, is that something that is reasonable or not, just for the individuals that cannot log on or don't feel comfortable doing it that way?
Yeah, that's absolutely reasonable. So there's two solutions to this. One is definitely printing out the survey. The survey is printable, so a blank version of it, so we can absolutely do that. The other thing I already have built into the distribution strategy is door-to-door, where I can have my laptop, tablet, or phone and actually display it to them so they can fill it out on the spot. The average time it takes to complete the survey is only 3 minutes. So I'm looking to do a combination. That way we're not excluding people who are not as technologically savvy to fill it out on their phone. So that's definitely something that we can do, and I'm assuming we can link it into the PDF of the village newsletter as well, but I'm open to any and all recommendations to get the survey best distributed. But right now it's just focusing on social media, a bit of door-to-door, and posting it on the village website. But we can definitely print it out too.
Mr. President,
Ms. Housefeld.
I would just say maybe to print out a hard copy and have it here at City Hall in case somebody wants to pick it up, and maybe even to distribute a hard copy to the seniors on Senior Day and let them fill it out and turn it in. You know, that way it's taken care of and their thoughts are taken care of too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else, Mayor? Good, thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't go into detail on the budget or the ordinance since I did it about half an hour ago. I would like to let you know, as of the end of November, the revenues are over the expenses by $2,217,304.34, and I was able to transfer another $1 million into the reserves. I also would like to inform council and the administration that I had a phone conference this week with Moody's. They are considering raising our bond rating. Currently, we are at an A2. They were very impressed with our increased revenues and the amount of our investments. I should be hearing back from them next week on what their decision is, and I will let you know in the new year. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Director Roll, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. You have before you ordinance number 37. That should be on the table tonight, and I would appreciate your voting on that. Thank you. Also, I do need to go into executive session this evening just to discuss ongoing pending litigation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Treasurer, Mr. Ungar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've not yet received the STAR statement, but as of the end of November, after the $1 million deposit that the auditor mentioned, we had a balance there at $10,120,000. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our leafer service will stop on December 21st. Please place leaves in cans or bags for them to be picked up after this date. The new fence at the pool is nearly completed. There are some finishing touches that need to be done, and that will need warmer weather to complete. Greater Cincinnati Waterworks is nearly ready for their supplies for Orchard Street. Once they give the go-ahead, we will go out for bids. I am hoping to have Vine Street completed at the same time. The work in the area around Vine, Martin, and Church is going to start on the new electrical circuit completion. I have opted to go underground to keep the streetscape uniform. We are working on walking trails for St. Bernard, and I have mentioned to council about leveling trip hazards on our sidewalks. I recontacted the company and asked for the estimate for walking trail sidewalks only, as this would cover most of our walkways. That estimate was $37,839.38. I recommend we do this. There is enough money in this year's budget to complete the task. This project will cause some dust, but nothing hazardous. They do move rather quickly, and the demonstration was pleasantly surprising. Our playground equipment company also has had a time trying to get plastic, paint, and aluminum supplies from their suppliers. This has delayed our start until March. As you recall, it was supposed to be done December. Supplies and delays seem to be the norm for the year of 2022. To my community, once again, the Spirit cast its spell, and the merry season is upon us. It can be a bustling time. You should make sure that you save time for memories. Do not dwell there, but rather let them fleetingly enter, enjoy them, and let them fade. You may brighten your own spirit and others by sharing these temporary recalls. We are very lucky to have memories. I believe they are magical. So, close your eyes, listen for the sleigh bells, let your spirit ride, and relish a wonderful season. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Taberky.
First, make a motion to go to executive session at the end of the meeting for pending litigation.
Motion by Mr. Taberky, seconded by Ms. Bettinghouse to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation. Are there any remarks? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on the motion for executive session?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig? Aye. Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Council will go into executive session to discuss pending litigation at the end of this meeting. Anything else?
Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, sir. Safety, Mr. Brickwig.
No report, Mr. President, but I do want to make a comment on the Christmas function that the city had. It was spectacular. I think all the different people, I can't think of everybody, but the PAC and just the everybody that participated in it to make it a successful event, it was outstanding. And I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you. Service, Ms. Hausfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, I have the Service Department report for November 2022. If I stop fogging up. Trucks placed at residence 23, dumpsters placed at residence 16, special pickups at residence 130, tons of 168.49 tons of garbage taken to the landfill. As far as the recycling report, there's 19.46 tons of recycling material, 6,020 pounds of scrap metal, 8 tires, and 8 30-yard roll-offs. Again, I want to thank everybody. Merry Christmas and happy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. CIC has a meeting scheduled for December 27th at 6 p.m. We're trying to arrange a guest to come in. If that doesn't happen, that meeting will be postponed, so just keep an eye out on the village calendar and on Facebook. Other than that, I would to just wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and have a safe holiday. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Ms. Bettinghouse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report for laws, contracts, and claims, but again, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And even though I wasn't able to attend the event, the Christmas event, I had heard from quite a few people that it was just wonderful. So thanks to all the people who have supported and actually helped with that, and thanks to all the administrators here at City Hall.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. A little redundant here, but thanks again to everybody who played a part in St. Bernard's wonderful holiday celebration. This year was by far the best year yet, and I look forward to how we're going to be able to top that next year. I would also like to thank, on behalf of the Recreation Department, the 2 platinum sponsors, St. Bernard Pub and Wiedemann Brewery, and also the 3 gold sponsors, Caldwell Banker, Brandy Schulmeyer, Wyoming Air, and St. Bernard La Roses. The next Historical Society meeting will take place in the Municipal Building on Monday, December 19th at 7 p.m. There will be a presentation on Cincinnati radio history led by Mike Martini of WMKV. And again, all residents, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
No report, Mr. President. I'll also wish everybody a happy holidays and a happy new year.
Thank you. Committee of the Whole, Ms. Stegman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no communications this evening.
Committee of the Whole was distributed to everybody, though. Committee of the Whole,
Yes.
you emailed
Yep.
everybody. Okay.
Minutes were
And no
submitted.
Okay, and no communications. All right. All right. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance number 36, 2022?
Ordinance number 36, 2022, authorizing and directing the auditor to provide additional appropriations, decreasing appropriations, and transfer funds and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 36, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 36, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance 36. Are there any remarks? Not. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 36? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberkey?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 36, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance number 36, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberkey?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson? Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 36, 2022 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance 37, 2022?
Ordinance number 37, 2022, authorizing the solid waste collection fee for residential accounts for the year of 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 37, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 37, 2022.
Second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend the second and third reading of ordinance 37, 2022. Are there any remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 37? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberkey?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 37, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance 37, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberkey?
No.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
No.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
5 ayes, 2 nays, motion carries. Ordinance 37 is adopted as read. All right, clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance number 38, 2022?
Ordinance number 38, 2022, an ordinance to make appropriations for expenses and other expenditures of the Village of St. Bernard, State of Ohio during the fiscal year 2023 and establishing new line items and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 38, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 38, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend the second and third reading of ordinance 38, 2022. Are there any remarks? Not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 38? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberkey?
Aye.
Mr. Brickway?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to adopt ordinance number 38, 2022.
Second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance number 38, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberkey?
Aye.
Mr. Brickway?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 38, 2022 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance 39, 2022?
Ordinance number 39, 2022, accepting and approving the terms of employment made by and between the Village of St. Bernard and St. Bernard Police Department officers and lieutenants and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 39, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 39, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 39, 2022. Are there any remarks?
Mr. President,
Mayor Stuchel.
I apologize. I just caught something. So whether or not we can make a quick amendment on the title, so it made reference to officers and lieutenants. I do need to add sergeants to that.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberkey.
make a motion to amend ordinance 39 to add sergeants to the title, in the
I'll
title
second.
area.
I'll second that.
Did I forget if I asked for a motion to suspend? Can you withdraw your motion to suspend? Because that motion's on the table and we can't do the other one until you do that.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse.
I make a motion to withdraw my suspension of the second and third reading of ordinance number 39, 2022.
I also.
Second that. All right, so that motion has been withdrawn. Mr. Taberkey, I will now entertain your motion.
Make a motion to amend ordinance 39, 2022 by adding the term sergeant after the St. Bernard Police Department officers, sergeants, and lieutenants.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Taberkey, seconded by Ms. Bettinghouse to add the word sergeants before the lieutenant on ordinance 39, 2022. Any remarks? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right, so it is amended. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to suspend second and third reading.
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse.
make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of the amended ordinance number 39, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Once again, a motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend the second and third reading of ordinance 39, 2022. Are there any remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 39? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberkey?
Aye.
Mr. Brickway?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, you've heard, or what is your pleasure on adoption of ordinance 39, 2022 as amended?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to adopt amended ordinance number 39, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance 39, 2022 as amended. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Rickway?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 39, 2022, as amended, is adopted as read. All right, at this time, does anyone on council have anything under old business besides Mr. Taberky? Couldn't resist, I'm sorry. Does anyone on council have anything under new business?
Mr. President,
Ms. Hausfeld?
I just wanted to thank the paramedics. This last couple weeks have been rough. I've had COVID. I've been in the hospital with what I thought was something to do with my heart. And the professionalism that the paramedics showed the other day when they took me to the hospital, along with everybody's prayers and well wishes, I really want to just thank everybody for all the prayers, well wishes, and their professionalism. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on council under new business?
Yes, Mr. President.
Ms. Brickway?
I'd like to be put on the agenda for the next committee of the whole to review the part-time pay ordinance, because not only will we have to work with the minimum wage, even though there's raises in this budget, we need to appropriate them before I can actually provide them for like the rec directors and items like that. And then I'll present the meals and entertainment resolution also. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. President,
Mayor.
whether this goes under the community participation portion, but we have Chris Sauer, one of our recreation directors, here this evening that wanted to give kind of a recap on the community garden, if that would be okay.
Hello, howdy. As mentioned, Chris Sauer with the Recreation Department, but in this particular time, I am the St. Bernard Garden Club. So in early 2022, Carol Brown came to the Mayor Stuchel hoping to start a community garden here in St. Bernard. What began as a project of the Village Recreation Department has grown into another successful organization in St. Bernard. Residents and community organizations came together. We raised over $5,000. This money, along with hundreds of volunteer hours, built 36 individual beds in our community garden in Upper Ross Park. This summer, all of those beds were filled, and vegetables and flowers grew throughout the season. At the same time, the St. Bernard Garden Club was officially formed, and we received our IRS determination of nonprofit status this July. We've hosted parties and work days in that garden. We've sold vegetables and pumpkins at the fresh markets here in the village. And starting next month, we're going to begin to offer gardening classes to the residents of St. Bernard. So as 2022 winds down, we wanted to report back to this organization to thank you for the opportunity, thank you for the support, and as we started what we hope is to be a growing and vibrant organization for this village in all the years to come. We're always looking for new members, so please join us on January 19th, 6 p.m. in Centennial Hall, where we host our first gardening class. It'll be hosted by the Cincinnati Civic Garden Center to teach hoop gardening and getting your vegetables started early for the year. We're accepting requests for community garden beds for this coming spring. So if you are interested in that, visit our website, stbernardgardenclub.org. We're also accepting sponsorships for this year's garden. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? All right. If not, then the next committee of the whole, there will be no council meeting next week, obviously with us having that tonight, just to make that clear. So the next committee of the whole will be Thursday, January 12th at 7 p.m. And at this time, before we adjourn, we will go into executive session to discuss pending litigation, and we'll return.